Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Rangers, a Triceratops in Time, a tale from Power Rangers Universe 20. Leonardo, the leader of his brothers, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and the new Blue Ranger ran through the streets of New York. He ran towards the commotion. A horde of screaming civilians ran towards him. He dodged and weaved and pushed through the panicking crowd. And finally, he saw the Red Time Force Ranger and the Quantum Ranger fighting a human-monster hybrid. She was half woman, with dark brown hair and tanned white skin, and the other half was a monstrous reptilian that resembled an alligator. She had greeny-browny scales that ran up her arm, and she was equipped with a monstrous claw. She also had a rather large tail. The hybrid swung her tail and tripped over the Red Ranger. The Quantum Ranger aimed his blaster and shot at the hybrid, but she deflected each blast with her scaly arm. Then she lashed out her tail, and the tip wrapped around the Quantum Ranger's ankle, and she pulled the Ranger into the air. Leo jumped up and into the fight and pulled out his katanas and slashed the monstrous tail with both his blades. The hybrid let out a grunt of pain, then she let go of the Quantum Ranger. Leo offered his hand and pulled the Ranger to his feet, then the Red Ranger joined them. "Leo, what are you doing here?" the Red Ranger asked. "My brothers are busy training in the Amazon rainforest. I got the streets to look after until they get back," Leo replied. They all turned to the hybrid. "Another puny distraction," the hybrid hissed. "Hey, Gecko Girl, no need to be insulting," Leo barked back. He pulled out his power morph and held it out. "Triceratops!" Leo barked, and he morphed into the blue, mighty morphing Turtle Ranger. The Blue Ranger, now equipped with his power lance, which had been alternated into his katanas, ran at the hybrid. He swung his sword, slashing at her. She slashed the Blue Ranger with her reptilian claw, and then she kicked out. The Blue Ranger blocked all the attacks, and then spun his blades around and slashed the hybrid several times, before jumping up and spinning around and kicking her back. She slid across the ground and slammed into a car. She punched the ground as hard as she could with her human fist, and then she pulled out a device and pressed the small blue button. A portal opened and she scurried through. The portal started rotating and the space continuum started pulling things into the portal. "That's an unstable time portal! She could be anywhere in time right now!" the Red Ranger barked as they used their swords to anchor themselves to the ground. "We have to stop her!" the Quantum Ranger growled. The Blue Ranger thought about it again, then reconsidered it. Then he turned to the Red Ranger. "Find a way to find me," the Blue Ranger commanded. Then he let go and let the portal pull him through, and he could hear the two Time Force Rangers call out his name. He was then swallowed by the portal. Leo woke up and looked around. He was surrounded by ninjas. Black clothing with red lines and an insignia that was on their shoulder. They all stood over him, ready to strike. "Whoa, easy, three ninjas next door. Calm down," Leo said, raising his hands. He slowly climbed to his feet, and he stood there as all the ninjas surrounded him. One individual stepped forward and stood strong and firm. "Identify yourself, strange creature," he snapped. "Leonardo, but my friends call me Leo. Look, I'm after no trouble. I'm here just looking for some freaky alligator human circus act," Leo told him. "Leonardo? For a turtle, you talk perfect English," the man questioned. "Well, I speak New Yorker, but yeah, sure, let's go with that," Leo muttered. "Okay, Leonardo, we have not seen your circus act," the man sneered. "Trust me, she's not with me, she's just extremely dangerous," Leo stated. Suddenly there was a scream far off in the distance. It came from the academy. "Everyone scatter," the man commanded. Then the surrounding ninjas all bolted into blurs and jumped around the trees and disappeared from sight. Leo and the man stood there for a mere second. "If you're going to stop this dangerous creature, I believe you. I can sense your leadership, compassion, and your generous heart. My name is Maxwell Brady. Welcome to the Thunder Academy," the man said, holding out his hand. "Oh yeah, nice to meet you. Come on, let's go find out where my hybrid is and save your academy," Leo nodded. They shook hands and Maxwell bolted away. Leo followed suit. They bolted through the forest and landed in the center of the academy grounds. There, the hybrid fought off the ninjas, easily throwing them around and slashing them apart and pummeling them into the ground. "That's the monster I'm after," Leo announced. "Keep it distracted. I have a way to even the playing field, but I gotta get something first," Maxwell told him. Leo nodded and ran into the fight, drawing his swords, and he ran up to the hybrid and kicked it, making her stumble back. "You followed me!" the hybrid roared. Yeah, I did. Problem?" Leo grinned, then he swung his swords and slashed the hybrid again. She swung her almighty tail, and scales shot out of it. The scales flew at Leo. He jumped and dived and dodged the incoming projectiles. Maxwell ran deeper into the academy building, and he ran through the halls and barged into the main hallway. He walked up to a statue that stood in the centre and knelt down before it. He removed a brick from the stand and pulled out a box. He then stood and turned around, and behind him stood a woman, rather a pregnant woman. "What are you doing with that?" the woman asked. "Luna, please, I'm trying to help," Maxwell replied. "Okay, and what happened to no more morphers because it must be a father speech?" the woman called Luna asked. "One more time, I promise. I'll put it back as soon as I'm done. I just need to even up the playing field. Besides, aren't you supposed to be in the basement with the other women, children, elderly? It's a safe room for a reason," Maxwell said. "Well, I'm sorry. Blame Hunter and Blake. They keep kicking me," Luna said, stroking her stomach. "I'm not set on those names, by the way," Maxwell chuckled. He leaned in and kissed Luna, who kissed him back. "You better come back to me, Mr. Bradley, or I will find your spirit and kick your ass. You hear me?" Luna whispered. "Oh, I heard you loud and clear. Now get to the basement," Maxwell snapped. Luna turned around and waddled away. Maxwell gripped the box and ran outside to see the hybrid flinging scales at Leo. He ran up to Leo and joined him. "Nice of you to join us," Leo quipped. "I told you how to get something," Maxwell replied. He opened the box and pulled out a Thunder Morpher and strapped it to his wrist. Then he took his pose. "Oh yeah, about time," Leo said as he pulled out his power morpher. "Thunderstorm, Ranger form," Maxwell called out. He pressed the bottom of the morpher and it opened up like beetle wings. There was a flash of crimson light and Maxwell morphed into the Crimson Thunder Ranger. Leo held out his power morpher and morphed into the Blue Ranger once again. The Blue and Crimson Ranger ran at the hybrid. She hissed at the two Rangers. She swung her almighty tail and the Crimson Ranger jumped over and attacked. Then he swung his foot and kicked the hybrid in the chest. The Blue Ranger swiftly moved behind the monster and slashed the creature in the back. She howled in pain as she slammed her alligator arm against the ground and sent a shockwave which knocked both Rangers back. She then slithered towards the Blue Ranger and grabbed him by the throat and raised the Turtle Ranger into the air. The Crimson Ranger summoned his Thunder Staff and ran at the hybrid. He hit her in the back of the legs and waist and then the back, followed by two quick strikes in the shoulders and head. She used her tail to wrap around the Crimson Ranger's waist and lift him into the air, squeezing tighter and tighter as he grunted due to the pressure. She then continued to punch the Blue Ranger as she crushed the Crimson Ranger. The Crimson Ranger raised his staff and lightning ripped from the perfectly blue sky and hit the Crimson Ranger's staff. The Crimson Ranger roared as he swung his weapon down and the lightning charge attack struck the hybrid. The attack caused a crackle as his staff made impact with the hybrid scales. She roared out in pain and dropped both Rangers. Then she opened another portal and jumped through it. Both the Rangers climbed to their feet and regrouped. "Thank you for your help," the Blue Ranger said. "I am sorry I cannot defeat it. I'm a tad rusty since my wife got pregnant. I have put down the ways of the Rangers, so to speak," the Crimson Ranger stated. "Fair enough. Look, I have to follow her. I have to stop her. But thank you, and good luck with everything." The Blue Ranger nodded. They shook hands and the Crimson Ranger demorphed. The Blue Ranger ran up to the portal and jumped through it, and the portal swept him up and sucked him in. The portal closed, and Maxwell stood there baffled by the events that had just transpired. He then looked at his morpher as he took it off and returned it to the box, placing it next to its brother morpher, the Navy Ranger morpher, waiting for the next two people to don the power of thunder. Leo woke up to see a Tyrannosaurus Rex looking down at him, and he could feel the warm breath hitting him in the face. Dinosaur, Leo muttered. The T-Rex roared back, its saliva hitting Leo in the face. He stood up slowly and held his hands up in surrender. "I would offer you pizza, but you guys have to die first," Leo muttered. Then suddenly a caveman landed before the T-Rex. "Tracy, leave. Go home," the caveman said. The T-Rex growled as it turned around and stormed off. The caveman turned to Leo. "Hello, Ninja Turtle. My name, Coda," the caveman said with a slight bow. "Oh yeah, Dino Charged Blue Ranger," Leo stated. Yes, that is correct. And why is Ninja Turtle here in Coda's time?" Coda asked. "Looking for a monster, a half-human, half-alligator-looking thing," Leo explained. "Oh, I saw her, by river. Come follow me," Coda cheered, and then he ran off. Leo shrugged and started to follow the caveman. They ran up to the river and there the hybrid knelt, cleaning her wounds. Leo ran up to her and kicked her down, and he pulled out one of his swords and held it out, the tip of the blade inches away from her face. You have to send us back home, send us back to New York, and you have to give yourself up willingly, Leo demanded. No, I'm trying to fix this, the hybrid roared. Wait, you're trying to turn back to human? Leo questioned. Human? I was never human, the hybrid hissed. Leo stood there stunned. This entire time, Leo assumed that she was a human that had mixed with an alligator. The DNA was combined, but in fact, she was an alligator mixed with human DNA. Leo looked straight at her. He could see the fear in her eyes, the anger mixed within it. He understood that. He had been the freak everyone else before. Himself, his brothers, and his sensei all had dealt with this sort of thing before. What are you trying to do? Leo asked her. I took this from the Thunder Academy. I need to mix it with pure water, she explained, revealing a bright red herb. Pure water? Leo asked, looking at the river that lay next to them, the river that sat in the time of the dinosaurs. Then it hit him. Water in its purest form. Water that hasn't been contaminated by the touch of mankind, Leo stated. The hybrid nodded. Leo knelt down and took the herb from the hybrid. She looked in horror as he took the herb from her. He then threw it into the air and quickly, with one swift movement, he diced it up with his sword. Then he knelt down and Coda ran up to them. Here, Coda said, handing them a stone slab and a crafting bowl made out of wood. Thank you, Leo said. They worked together to grind the herb and mix in the pure water from the river, and turned it into some form of paste. The hybrid explained what happened to her. She was an alligator who was experimented on. She learned to talk, and then came the injections. Pure, painful injections. The injections that was pumping pure human DNA into her. She started to mutate, started changing form, and eventually she looked half human. But that was it. They couldn't do anything else, so they decided to terminate her. Before her termination, she managed to escape. She stole the time portal technology from the Silver Guardians, then she got to the time period of the Thunder Academy before it got destroyed, and she stole the herb. And now she was at the time of the dinosaurs trying to revert back to an alligator. You are strong, but went the wrong way. Should have asked for help, Coda told her. I have no one, the hybrid muttered. You have me now, Leo replied, placing his hand on her scaly shoulder. The paste had finally been done. The hybrid scooped some up and placed it on her tongue and swallowed hard. But before anyone could do anything, something teleported onto the field with them. They looked over at the metal being. Sledge! Coda hissed. That alligator monster's mine! Move aside! She's going to make me a nice bounty, Sledge declared. Coda and Leo stood in front of the hybrid, and Sledge aimed his blaster. In a glimmer of light, Coda's Dino Charge Morpher and Charger appeared in his hands. He held it out and triggered it. Then he slotted it into the blaster Morpher and spun the revolver, then aimed the blast up into the air. Unleash the power, he called out, and then pressed the trigger. In a flash of light, Coda morphed into the blue Dino Charge Ranger. Triceratops! Leo grinned. He pulled out his morpher and morphed into the blue Mighty Morphin Turtle Ranger. It's party time, he called out. Both the Blue Rangers ran at Sledge. The Dino Charge Ranger slammed his fist into Sledge's chest, throwing the bounty hunter off his feet. He hit the ground hard. He staggered up and opened fire. The blast hit the Dino Charge Ranger, knocking him to the ground. The Turtle Ranger jumped up and spun around, kicking Sledge with both his feet, one after the other. Then he landed and pulled out his blades and slashed the bounty hunter a few times. Then he ducked down, and the Dino Charge Ranger jumped over him and slammed into Sledge one more time. Both the Blue Rangers threw their punches out and kicks, working together. Then the Dino Charge Ranger revved his blaster and fired it. At the same time, the Turtle Ranger slashed the bounty hunter. Sledge was hit by both attacks and stumbled backwards. Screw this! Keep the freak! Sledge roared. Then he teleported away. The two Blue Rangers high-fived each other, then both demorphed. Coda and Leo then ran up back to the river, but the hybrid was nowhere to be seen. Did she escape? Leo asked. Then an alligator splashed out of the water and climbed up onto the riverside. Coda stroked the alligator's snout. I think this is her, Coda stated. Leo knelt down and looked at the alligator. Then he smiled at her and stroked her snout as well. He stood up and Coda placed his hand on his shoulder. It worked. She can stay here, in my time, and be safe, Coda told him. Thanks, Coda. Leo nodded. Then Coda pulled out a dimensional device. Coda send Leo home? Coda said with a smile. Leo thanked Coda for his help and Coda opened a portal for Leo to jump through. This time it was a lot easier going back to New York with a stable portal device. Leo told Wes and Eric that he defeated the monster and the mission was successful. He then headed home into the sewers underneath New York City. He walked in and found his sensei and brothers all waiting for him. Dude, you're back, took your sweet ass time, and you didn't bring pizza? Mikey whined. What's up, Leo? You look miffed. And that's Raphael's job, Donnie chuckled. Actually, he kind of has a point, Raph replied. Leo stood there and took a deep breath in. I got a submission. People experimenting on animals, Leo told his brothers. Oh yeah, another ranger mission, let's go. Mikey cheered as he punched the air. No, this is for ninjas, not Power Rangers, Leo told them. Then he told them what happened with the hybrid and that they had to stop those who caused her mutation. And then they all agreed that the 4 Ninja Turtle brothers set out to stop any more of the mutations from happening.
What you have just listened to is a product created by the 3 Ranger Bros Studio.
Hosted by 3 cosplaying fathers who
happen to be massive geeks of all sorts of fandoms.
They are Mark, the Red Cornish Ranger,
Cosplay Dude 637,
and Tai Tiger.
The studio covers different types of YouTube videos, TikToks, podcasts, and live streams.
If you wish to find out who cosplays who, the YouTube channel, the TikTok accounts, and the podcasts, and all of the other social media platforms,
please go to the 3rangerbrostudios.com.